global pressure.
Yeah, because Tank, he was kind of that mystery that came in alongside PSG when they went through that rebrand back during the mid-season break. We kind of wondered, what would he actually offer to the team alongside Candy? Well, then it turned out Candy actually just wanted to take a break from playing, and now Tank has sole ownership when it comes to that mid lane position and has had to fill in a bit of a gap that was left behind by Candy, and has done well so far, allowing himself to apply pressure globally onto the Rift. But let's go ahead and get into Champion Select. River not going to have access to his Nidalee, and Galio being taken away from Nestea. It's those niche pocket picks that everyone loves to play not being available.
Yeah, you spoke of applying pressure globally, and both of these champions remarkable at moving around the map. Aggressive rotations in the Nidalee, just, constant speed when she moves through brushes, good dueling as well, and Galio to remedy any sort of shortcomings that Hana might have in 1v1 matchups just by crashing this gargoyle down into the enemy jungle.
And then getting rid of the Twisted Fate, that was again the debut pick for Tank, and he was able to excel on it. And also getting rid of the Aphelios, I like it from Taipei J team. Not going to let Unified have pretty much his most played champion so far of the PCS this year.
Yeah, Unified I would consider to be on a similar level to Bruce, where these dominant teamfight carries are kind of suffering still from the fact Misfortune got shafted out of the meta entirely. Aphelios being banned out, of course, means one less champion in that wheelhouse. Ezreal will be a priority pick here just because it is the go-to pick for both Lil V and Unified when it is available. And I'm curious to see, do we see Ashe kind of being that bait pick that a lot of these teams have defaulted to once Ezreal is no longer on the table?
Yeah, because the times that we have seen PSG actually pick up the Ashe, often Unified almost tries to play it similar to an Aphelios and tries to get right up into the faces of some members and then gets caught out and gets taken down. But the one thing that was able to make it through the first round of bans was the Kalista as it gets locked in.
Yeah, something very similar to the kind of game plan we saw Alpha approach with in the previous game. Just hard shove in that bot lane, play exclusively for Unified and Kaiwing, and dominate that lane phase, especially if you can get the Thresh or a priority jungler on this rotation. I like it, it's a fantastic bot lane, but you mentioned in the pregame, Kaiwing and Unified, while being top tier in teamfights, have a little bit of a shaky time come this early lane phase.
And now my question is here for PSG, they rather went with a safe lock-in. So if you're on the side of Taipei J team, what do you want to try and pick up here? Because you pretty much have access to everything you could possibly want.
I mean, I'm not a huge fan of the Trundle, but Hana is one of the few in the region that does make it work. Granted, we do have a couple of blind picks still available across other roles. This is not necessarily my favorite champ because you know for a fact Nestea will be taking it mid lane here because they've already locked an AD carry, but it is something with limited degrees of counters, and you know for a fact that Tank hasn't had the best performances on Jace, which is the go-to Syndra counter at the moment.
It's still a little bit of a nice relief pick here, also coming out from Nestea, acting as a carry instead of falling back on more to that utility. For River though, he gets something that he is comfortable on, and that of course is going to be his Lee Sin as it gets locked in.
Yeah, early skirmishing gonna be the name of the game for PSG here, actually drafting towards being very proactive in the first 10-15 minutes. A big criticism we had of them was their kind of tendency to only turn on the proactive trigger past 15 minutes. At that mark, yes, they will be bloodthirsty, yes, they will go for plays, but it won't be until after plates have crashed, until after they've given up a dragon or two, and it really does kind of indicate that we're seeing a new dynamic from a team that sorely needs to step up at this stage of the split.
Seeing those some more comfort picks being taken away. We won't see rest on his Kennen like we saw earlier today up against Resurgence, as well as Woody not having something with a hard engage or global map pressure that a Bard can offer you once you hit that mid game where he's able to look for those temperate fates.
Yeah, with LeBlanc banned out as well, it means Zoe is now pretty high priority as an answer to the Syndra. I mentioned Jace would be my go-to for, a Syndra counter, and Hanabi does play it as well, so you do have some flexibility if you want to lock that. The fact GP and Kennen were banned as well means that you do have that reliable blind pick top, but why blind pick top or mid when you can just counter pick mid and then counter pick top later on?
So there you go. Corky is going to get locked in for Tank. I believe we've seen him play it once so far in the PCS for PSG. Did okay. Was it, mind-blowing? It was still Corky. Does a lot of damage if he's able to scale up. But let's go back over toward Taipei J Team and what they want to use to try and round out this composition.
My main hesitation towards Corky here is that Tank, well, Corky can build a lot of items and build a lot of different paths, and Tank hasn't really chosen the most optimal of item builds so far across a variety of champions in that mid lane.
Yeah, last time actually that we saw the Corky from him, he was the one player to build into the Hex Drinker, but then couldn't upgrade it because Ma is currently disabled, so that kind of stalled out his trading force. Was useful into his lane, but nonetheless, looking at Taipei J Team, we mentioned Woody carrying that win rate for Nautilus when it comes to the PCS, is going to go ahead and pick up one of his favorites.
Literally half of the champions' wins are through Woody. Would be sitting at a less than 25% win rate if not for the J Team support. And, kind of locked in alongside a Wukong that we kind of slept on as being one of Rest's go-to carry picks nowadays. It's not got quite the punch of that Orianna Shockwave combo, but it's still something you can leave in isolation to really do work on the enemy top laner if given the opportunity.
And I know our main matchup that we wanted to focus on, it's up and toward that top lane for PSG. They round out this composition. Would a Mordekaiser to go up against Rest's Wukong?
Yeah, Mordekaiser not really a champ pre-6, but PSG just going to play for bot lane in this early game. They have good volatility between the consistent pick potential and aggressive damage focus of Kalista Thresh, plus Lee Sin to boot. Yeah, we could see Tank sit back till the 9-minute mark before he leaves the mid lane himself, but the rest of PSG should be exclusively pulling the trigger on proactive bot lane plays.
And that's what you want to see from PSG, you mentioned. Get proactive plays onto the bot side of the map. For Taipei J Team, what's the question here? Are you just trying to scale back up with that Ezreal to be able to come online yourselves?
Yeah, not up too much, but that mid-game spike. Level 11, Ludens for the Syndra, that power spike we continue to hammer here on the English broadcast. And as well as that, just think about 2 items for the Ez as well. Then you can look to just steamroll fights with consistent DPS, just one shot whoever the biggest threat is on PSG at the time with the Syndra, because if Kalista's ever in range to auto you, she's in range to get an Unleashed Power to the face, especially in the later stages when rank 3 Unleashed Power comes through for that additional range.
Well, we're going to go ahead and get ourselves set. Of course, Taipei J Team currently at the top of the standings alongside AHQ and need this victory. Looking for revenge up against PSG that was able to take them down earlier here in the summer split. For PSG Talon, the question has become, can this team remain title contenders in their current form? Can they make their way to the World Championship via the PCS playoffs? That question still has yet to be answered, and maybe can give us a clue here with the performance here today as we load on into the Rift. Back here, a bit more of a tamer start for Taipei J Team than what we saw last game earlier tonight. Not seeing ST rockin' Nunu. I feel like, too, this draft feels a lot more serious coming out from Taipei J Team when they're going up against PSG.
Yeah, a little bit of more controlled start for PSG as well. You can tell they weren't planning any sort of level 1 aggressive invade shenanigans because the Kalista already bound the Black Spear to the Thresh. Typically, you'll see teams kind of wait off on that one and just invade heavily with the Q at level 1 from the Thresh. But, yeah, no such reservations this time around. Full defensive, and a topside start for the Lee Sin is going to indicate that River should be looking to level 3 gank that bot lane.
Yeah, because you mentioned in draft, we want to see this bot lane from PSG Talon be proactive. Once Kaiwing gets, again, that level 2, level 3, once you have a couple skills in your lobby for Thresh, easy combo and easy follow-up for River.
Yeah, small Lee Sin mechanical clear here when he solos the buffs. You W to yourself, auto twice for the passive procs, and then press the W for the lifesteal after detonating those passive procs in order to, really stack that. Because Lee Sin, 2 additional attack speed attacks every time he uses a spell, but it doesn't stack, so you need to consume it before you reactivate it.
Meanwhile, though, Hana, a little bit more simpler when it comes to a Trundle. Just auto attack away.
Right click. Q.
It's right click and Q. It's not rocket science when it comes to Hana's clear nonetheless. Already maybe looking for a possible top lane play because pre-level 6, Hanabi usually has a target on his back.
Yeah, we had a little bit of an emphasis on the fact that Hanabi does tend to give first blood more often than not. And the fact he's on a Mordekaiser who isn't really a champion pre-6, as you mentioned, just really does indicate that we could see Hana look for a play there. But we mentioned Trundle, less of a gank threat, so much as a gank deterrent. And that's where I think Hana could benefit, just from shadowing his mid, shadowing his bot, and really denying any sort of playmaking from River early.
Yeah, because of course, if a skirmish is to break out, if you're a Kalista player, you know how unfun it is just to be next to a Trundle pillar during a fight. It's not a great time yourself, so let's see whether or not Hana wants to try and answer River on some of these early proactive plays we expect out of PSG. And heck, he says, I'm going to steal your chickens, I'm even going to try and be aggressive into you.
Yeah, Hana gets to do this because, as you see, you just have Nesty consistently shoving Tank's stuff in. Whoop.
At early level here from Hanabi. He's going to be safe himself, but you could see, Rest was starting to feel in a little bit of that rhythm. Wanted to try and get some pressure, but no kill going through just yet.
I remember I didn't get to cash in on my meme from last game, actually. Back in Season 2 Opal, the Korean message boards told me, Level 2 Wukong, best champ in the game. Level 3 Wukong, worst champ in the game. Level 2 he is EQ, and he outtrades everybody, and that's why you're seeing early stages of the game, Hanabi already being given a run for his money. Pillar could stop that recall, doesn't even need to.
Yeah, now Hanabi is kind of forced to try and soak up what he can, but he knows what's about to come as now they decide to push on forward, looking for that first blood. In comes the pillar, a super late teleport, some damage following back from Hanabi, but it's still going to be first blood going on over to Rest. Tank wants to try and at least get a cleanup in response. Flash already burned by the Wukong, and a nice response coming out from Tank, already exerting some global pressure with that teleport.
Yeah, Nesty not even leaving mid does go to show that J-Team were committed, but not to the point where they got greedy. Syndra mana pool, a little suspect, and honestly, Nesty gets a lot of farm for this. J-Team get first blood. Hanabi's flash was just clumsy. The melee auto followed it. The clone did a lot of damage too. And yeah, good answer by Tank, but again, J-Team with the proactive power play on the top half.
And it's come back to a lot of drafts that we have seen from PSG and a lot of champions that Hanabi puts himself on where, pre-level 6, he's that main target. That's the main point that a lot of teams just want to attack. And I think he actually has one of the highest first blood given rates when it comes to the top lane as far as the PCS goes.
Yeah, and speaking of that top lane, I do wonder, do 3 longswords beat 2 cloth armors? I suppose time will tell. Hana, though, says no 1v1 for you. Here's a pillar.
Just coming on in, says, all right, you know what, even if you feel a little bit comfortable with the cloth armor, not going to happen. River, though, seeing that Hana has remained onto the top side of the map, is going to go ahead and start off the first dragon for PSG with that proactivity coming out of their bot lane, getting the prio.
Corki kind of suffering from Ezreal-itis here, where, cool, we got a kill, we got some good farm under our belts, let's get Tyr Cull.
See, Nesty, though, looking for a very early roam. Hanabi, though, does have that level 6, so he can turn this 1v2 in a 1v1. Depends, though, as Nesty trying to do what he can. Unable to land any of the combo, actually, but still getting some orbs down. Not a whole lot of mana, actually, for that Syndra. Brings him into the death realm. Hanabi, though, has the shield, and in the 1v1, Nesty is no match at the moment to Hanabi, but in comes Rest, trying to turn it back around. It still won't matter. It's a 1-for-1 as Hanabi is able to recover in that 2v1. Now bot lane, though, there is your Death Sense. This is your proactive play you wanted to see come out of the PSG bot lane. Still no kill just yet.
Yeah, tidy 1v2 coming through from Hanabi. He ticks over to level 6. Death Realm is up. Fancy Footwork is on, and he just ruins Nestie's day. The proactive roam from the Syndra is delayed. It's too late. If the first time you visit this top lane is when the Mordekaiser is already past level 6, something has gone wrong with your early game priorities.
And you even saw there, Rest, I think, was rather a bit too confident in his mid laner because he didn't even actually come on over. He just said, okay, well, you can finish off Hanabi, right? And then it turned into the bit of this mess.
Yeah, Rest was not even level 6 at the time of that. Kind of symptomatic of the fact that River had kind of lurked around top lane. Sorry, Hana had lurked around top lane a little bit too long, sapped a little bit too much XP. And yeah, the PSG top laner, he's died twice, but he's got a lot back for it.
So not too bad here from Hanabi, and we'll keep track toward that top lane matchup. But we do see Hana now starting to path toward the bot side of the map. But already, the spot lane's like, yeah, it's too late. We want to go back. We already got 64 farm. That's going to be the Sheen and Tier picked up here for Loki.
Yeah, and while all of that had kind of happened across the board, Tank was just consistently, quietly farming up in the mid lane. His own tier is going to stack up, his cull's going to cash out, and you're looking towards both these teams to explode the game in a big team fight in around 3 or 4 levels for the big players in the mid lane.
And even here, the dinging right there, that is package available for Tank, so if he wants, he can go back to base and have that in his back pocket. Maybe a little bit early, considering Cloud Dragon is going to be up for about 2.5 minutes, but it looks like PSG have plans for the Rift Herald.
Yeah, package, when it is up, does give a little bit priority around these neutral objectives. Of course, 8 minutes, beautiful timer for both the Herald and the package to be synced up. And with this secure, we should see good early game gold funneled onto Unified some more, and that will let PSG accelerate through the lane they needed to play for.
So there you go. A nice pickup and not really any response coming out from Taipei J teams. It feels like they're kind of still waiting, like you mentioned back in Champ Select, that level 11 to come online and that first item for the Syndra.
Yeah, once that does come through though, Nesty should just be able to reliably one-shot tank. Of course, no Hex Drinker for your favorite mid lane Corki player this time around. Looking at J-Team here though, they're on full defensive. Could commit the Herald from PSG just to get some plates down, but gonna say nah. We actually want to crack open a tower with this, so might just need to commit that a little bit harder. No package anymore, but still a quick rotation.
Package
package actually up.
Tank all around the side. In comes the package himself, and there's Rest trying to go for the engage. Meanwhile, Shelly's able to get that charge. River, though, is going to get taken on down as Hana's able to find it, but a big amount of burst already coming out from Tank. Fate's Call used here by Unified. Kaiwing, though, able to get himself back to safety, but here comes Nesty. You need to find some cleanup here on the side of Taipei J team, but it isn't going to happen as PSG are able to make a distance.
Yeah, J-Team just behind on the play when it comes to that big commitment. Again, Nesty, late to roam, late to follow up, and Kaiwing!
Again, another beautiful flash dead sense coming out from Kaiwing, his signature champion so far in the PCS. That's going to be Unified picking up the kill.
I'm not entirely sure as to why Woody used Exhaust and the Nautilus ultimate there. It just means that the bot lane from J-Team can't actually fight for the next minute and a half now. With Drake being up, I think you just acknowledge that the Nautilus is going to die and then contest around the Drake. Instead, randomly blowing cooldowns left and right. And honestly, J-Team now in a very precarious position when it comes to setting up for the next big neutral objective.
Well, yeah, the fact now that you kind of missed out, and like you've mentioned, you're not going to have that cooldown for Woody. Like, what are the options for Taipei J-Team at this point?
Honestly, it's just playing the wait for Syndra to be relevant, wait for Ezreal to be relevant kind of game. We do kind of sleep on the fact that this Wukong did get a solid lead for himself early, but that was kind of nullified by the fact Hanabi got that sick 1v2 power play. Because of the lane assignments being a little clumsy, because of J-Team again being behind on the play, we're seeing PSG just answer with another neutral objective secured for themselves.
And I feel like, unfortunately, this might be one of those games for Hana where he's kind of a bit of a sad trundle. Unfortunately, he has been just trying to hover and try and act as a gank deterrent like you mentioned earlier, but PSG, they haven't been slowing down with a lot of these plays.
To be fair, it's not like River has been all over the place with his ganks. The only assist he got was from that top lane tower dive fumble at level 1. Not level 1, but, you know, for First Blood. And honestly, this Lee Sin, I'm not super inspired by, but we can't really fault him when he's got both big neutral objectives consistently this game.
At least having objective control, as Lil V himself may want to try and find some safety. True Shot Barrage is going to be there, but guess what? Woody's a bit late onto this rotation. In comes the rest of the squad as Lil V does get the kickoff, but unfortunately, River has that kick. And Woody, oh my, that is aggressive coming out from this Nautilus. Wants to try and make something happen. Unfortunately, River, nothing he can tag with the Q to get him back to safety, and he gets taken down.
A little bit of a delayed TP coming back from PSG as well. What is Mordekaiser going to do to answer you at this point? Answer is not a lot. And this is the kind of game we were not necessarily expecting. PSG a lot more proactive in this early game, but you can tell they're uncomfortable with these early commitments. They're overcommitting, they're greeding, they're not respecting the J team are now in a position to fight. And I think the fact that both mid laners just went to farm mid is kind of poetic, because yeah, this is the opposite of the big global pressure we were expecting.
Yeah, it seems like Tank is pretty much just reliant on the package before he wants to make plays, and we're getting pretty close now to ST. Going to have that level 2 into his ultimate in just a quick moment, and also likely finish off his first item.
Yeah, I definitely do have to watch for the Syndra one-shot combo at that rate. As we said, Kalista, if she's ever in range to auto Syndra, is in range to just get completely decimated by a quick and tidy R. I'm looking at Lil V though. We have the Manamune stacking up. We have the Sheen about to become online into a Triforce. So definitely do have potent carries on the side of JT.
And this is good timing for them, because you do have to also note that PSG were able to take the first 2 dragons of the game and are now looking to start to stack up toward an Ocean Soul. You want to start delaying that if you're Taipei J team.
Yeah, I definitely do want to look to kind of stem the bleeding at this point. And I think that having these mid-game power spikes for your big major carries really going to lend a lot of strength to your ability to contest these. Granted, it won't remedy the fact that they've been behind on the rotation, but it will give them an actual fighting chance when it comes to the prolonged skirmishes.
So see now, it's going to be turret plating falling here. As it looks like Taipei J team just opting to try and get some control in toward the Rift Herald pit. Because that's going to be an SC just going back into his lane to clear that one out. And so far, when we take a look back on what we expected of this early game, we saw some proactivity come out of the bot lane of PSG, but we saw a lot of action toward that top side of the map, and Rest himself has kind of been, you know, slowly farming up kills here on this Wukong, already finishing off his Black Cleaver and having that Tiamat.
Yeah, but at a point, you just have to kind of consider that Rest on the Wukong always going to be that little bit lackluster in the 1v1 relative to the Mordekaiser, especially now we've kind of crashed out of that early game where the Wukong did have that advantage. However, Rest very potent in the team fights, very potent in the skirmishes, and therefore PSG do have to respect JT.
And respecting them they shall, as that's going to be the Rift Herald being secured here by Taipei J team. We saw River decided to go back even though he was in the top lane, and finally an objective on the board here for J team, just cresting over that 15-minute mark.
Yeah, I'm looking at J-Team to use this Herald to not necessarily funnel gold onto one target in particular, but just, you know, we said they were always pretty much ahead on the play when it comes to their dominant victories, so I'm looking for a decisive call, a commitment to one lane in particular, whether that's cracking open mid lane tier 1 and then using the pressure to fish for Nautilus hooks, Syndra QE combos, Trundle pillars. Just use the Herald to generate momentum and snowball that into bigger plays elsewhere.
And we do see here now, Ocean Drake is going to be spawning in about 20 seconds. Tank has that package available. Good timing here for PSG. You saw an ST really wanted to go back and pick up that Ludens, but does mean, though, the rest of him and the squad is unfortunately just going to be a little bit behind for this reset and give prio over to PSG.
Yeah, the contest's going to be a little clumsy here because you can just kick the Trundle out of the pit, you can rend with the Kalista, zoning package, everything coming up for PSG here, and so J-Team just commit Herald to mid lane and try to trade one back.
Well, there we go. It's going to be secured, and now Hook going to come out as Kaiwing able to find the death sentence consistently. River almost gets taken on down. Tank over toward the side with the package, not able to find the angle he was looking for. Meanwhile, Hanabi in this 1v1, you mentioned it, even though Rest has the 3 kills, he's going to have an extra death as Hanabi's able to find the shutdown.
Yeah, Hanabi, quiet MVP of that fight. Kept the Wukong in the death realm, kept the Wukong out of his backline, and keeps the Wukong in the graveyard. Absolute dominance from the Mordekaiser in the 1v1 from this point onwards. And PSG with the insane power play there.
So not half bad, and we mentioned for J-Team, you really wanted to try and stop this Dragon from going on over. Unfortunately, timing just wasn't in their favor, and again, like you mentioned, Hanabi just preventing Rest from disrupting this fight at any point.
We got hyped for the hook from the Thresh into the hook from the Nautilus. It was Hook City, but they were living in Hanabi's world, the Death Realm, the firm control of everything from the PSG top laner there, after he did kind of get bullied around in the early game.
With that, Hanabi now online himself, having that Leandres ready to bring everyone to Smash City with his mace. So there you go. A 3,000 gold lead for PSG, sitting firmly in control of the game at the moment.
Yeah, I definitely do have to look at PSG as having the edge here. Not only do they have big spikes on the Corki, who is of course grinding towards a Triforce of his own, but you're looking at the Callista on Blade, beautiful single item spike, entire shopkeeper's worth of items in Hanabi's inventory too. Fantastic time to fight for PSG, and an even better one in 3 minutes time, when that Ocean Soul at 21 minutes will come crashing down in J-Team's face.
And they could even be pretty confident. It's now Tank still pushing into the side lane because he's still wanting to finish off his Trinity Force. He did delay it, getting that Hex Drinker, can't upgrade it to the Ma, but still looks like not having to worry as the rest of his team is playing things rather safe and trying to deny some of this vision line that was being put forward by Taipei J-Team.
Heavy emphasis on the CDR from Hana.
Hook for a hook. That's going to be Fate's call, though, as Kaiwing ends up throwing himself and then the Lantern. Keep Unified safe himself. There'll be a disengage.
Yeah, the Trundle's basically a pillar bot to mildly inconvenience the Callista at this point. Issue is that Ezreal's going for Gauntlet, which means he's also just looking to kind of stop the Callista in her tracks. At some point, the Corki and the Mordekaiser have to be dealt with. Cool, you have tools to deal with Callista, you have tools to deal with Unified. Issue is, the rest of PSG, their solo laners in particular, are stepping the hell up so far this game.
Yeah, because now Tank going to be online, has Trinity Force completed on the most recent back. Going to have that extra little bit of mixed damage, and unfortunately that damage profile, sure, you're going to go Iceborne and try and slow down the Callisto like you mentioned, but you got to deal with that big crit that's going to be coming on, especially when Tank usually finishes off either a rapid fire or later on into the game, if we get to that point, the Infinity Edge.
And my major concern for J-Team in regards to itemization, as you mentioned there, is the fact that if the Syndra isn't ahead, like, Nestie's behind now, you're down 1 damage threat. She can't one-shot anyone, and that means Ezreal is going to be dealing the lion's share of your DPS. And if he opts for Frozen Fist into Death's Dance or another utility item, suddenly your damage is hampered across the board, and PSG can just run rampant, even more so than they are already.
And now, unfortunately for Taipei J-Team, we're starting to see, look at that gold graph. All your carries happy online when it comes to PSG. Like you already mentioned, Tank has a massive gold lead. He's sitting on a bunch of farm and already only has a 500 shutdown on his head. I'd be rather afraid for Taipei J-Team, considering that they have to contest this next Drake, or else it is going to be Ocean Soul to PSG.
Yeah, definitely are being just shut out of this one. J-Team really in a sticky situation here. That's why you see them trying to face check as 5 people and trying to find a pick anyway, because if they don't contest this, it is all doom and gloom for the J-Team side.
And you saw there, Woody was very close to getting the dredge line onto River, but again, just not close enough. But you do see wards being put on down. Taipei J team, they do not want to give this up, but you gotta be careful. Package is available for Tank once again. Nesty needs to keep himself safe as Lil V almost gets caught out himself. A beautiful play though coming out from Kaiwing. In comes the Corki. Exhaust goes down, but you can still see the damage output from Unified and the rest of the squad. Knock up lands onto Nesty and Woody. It's a double kill for Unified. Rest tries to trade it back, but in the end, it's still the main carries of Hanabi and Tank still alive, still finding double kills for PSG Talon.
Tank free casting in that fight, the Corki just pumping out the damage, and he is not done yet. Chasing down Hana, gonna secure the ace. PSG, it looked rough to start with because River went on a bizarre adventure towards the back of the Drake pit. And hey, I said the Trundle could mildly inconvenience people. Cool, that was about it. That is all that went in favor of J-Team that fight, was that Corki didn't kill Trundle at the end of it.
And unfortunately now Ocean Soul secured. We'll take a look back here as Lil V. It actually almost looked like River himself got caught out, but then this kick ends up landing and interrupts into this beautiful play.
Yeah, River's out of this fight. River took the blast cone and went 3 screens away from everybody else, and yet J-Team are still unable to commit to this. Hanabi takes out Rest, and suddenly you have an underwhelming Syndra, and Ezreal with like no items, plus Trundle and Nautilus who are literally just supports. Really rough time for J-Team, even though they got what looks like an ideal start to that fight.
So with that now, PSG, Soul in hand, Elder Dragon going to be coming up in 5 minutes. Can put full focus towards the top side of the map and look to try and secure their first Baron of the game.
Definitely are looking towards that as being a game-clinching objective, especially when combined with that Ocean Soul. PSG, we had our criticisms of them. You know, they are a little bit rough around the edges when it comes to gelling as a 5-man cohesive unit as a whole, but they could still find a pick here.
Into a flay, comes out, Box going to be put on down. That's just going to be Tank joining in onto the fight. That's going to be the Cyclone onto the back line. Unified Tank, though, untouched for the majority of it, as that Kalista is still very healthy. Hanabi still fighting into the pin. In comes Hana. He gets kicked back by River, and now Lil V will get taken down extremely low. And Nesty, during this fight, I have not seen him land any damage onto the back line of PSG on this Syndra.
And Rest did his thing. He found the backline, he found the Cyclone, he got in there before Hanabi could finish the TP, and yet the rest of the squad were just being zoned out by Lee Sin, by Thresh, by Corki, and it meant that the follow-up damage from J-Team wasn't there, it meant the teamfight victory for J-Team wasn't there, and it means that this Baron is no longer there either.
And unfortunately now you're going to have to wait out this Baron buff for the next 3 minutes on the side of Taipei J-Team. And when you have optimal setups like this where you're able to try and catch out multiple members of PSG for rest, it feels really bad when I don't see Nesty anywhere near this fight trying to help out.
Yeah, both carriers from J-Team getting zoned by a potential Lee Sin flank. Hanabi also just kind of there. Really rough commitment from the side of J-Team.
Like, Lil V and Nesty, they're playing on the very edge of the screen, and you even saw Nesty. He threw an ultimate into Hanabi. He's a Mordekaiser. He doesn't really care about you at that point. He'll just have soak up that down to the shield, and unfortunately, the target selection from Taipei J-Team is just not what it needs to be.
Actually, looking at Hanabi's build right now, you don't see the Nationals Tooth, which means he's playing for team fights from this point onwards. Doesn't really give too much in regards to that 1v1 potential. Instead, just gonna look to single-handedly, single-macedly carry these big skirmishes.
And now with this, PSG can easily push into the jungle of Taipei J-Team. You saw Woody, unfortunately, ends up going for the hook into the terrain. Over the wall comes Hanabi. Another team fight looking for the party. Rest onto that back line, gets the knock up onto Unified, but there is no damage follow-up on the side of Taipei J-Team because they threw it all into the Thresh, and Hanabi still raring to go, brings down the smash. In comes Tank, he's dominating, and the rest of Taipei J-Team trying to run, but River is hunting once again on the Lee Sin. Lil V nowhere left to go but his fountain, tries to get himself back to safety. He shall, but he's the only member remaining for J-Team as the base is going to get cracked wide open.
Yeah, Tank decides to join the fight for good measure at the end, has his TP here, can escort these minion waves, and once he decides to join, the fight is sealed. The game may be sealed as well here. Tank coming in, PSG continuing.
And there you have Woody going to try and do what he can, but he's only this lone Nautilus. Gets into the middle of the fight. In comes Rest as well. Doesn't have Cyclone available. The first Nexus Tower will fall. Hana has respawned. Rest is able to get his clone down, but you see the amount of damage that comes out from this Corki. It's absolutely ridiculous. Tower gets taken on down. Nexus now exposed. And PSG come in dominating over Taipei J team, taking down the top of the leaderboard.
26-minute victory for the side of PSG, making our top team look like one of the ones lulling towards the bottom of the middle of the pack. This is what PSG needed. This was their chance to show that they are still the top contender in the region. And do that, they certainly did.
Yeah, honestly. If you're able to take down Taipei J team just like that, and they seem to be the kryptonite of these top teams once again when it comes to AHQ and now Taipei J team. They haven't been able to beat PSG now twice during the summer split, and that's even concerning because we consider PSG to be weaker when it comes to the best of one style of setup. When you look toward playoffs, that's where they excel. That's where they're able to adapt over the course of a series and look like absolute monsters, much like they did back in spring.
And speaking of adaptation, PSG correctly identified that they were cleaning up plays the J team were forcing on the top side of the map, and even if that bot lane was the linchpin to early game success, PSG just win across the board. And not only is this an important victory for them as an org, as a unit, but it's an important victory for Tank, just being so huge here and really showing that he's not just candy light substitute for a mid laner that the team will sorely miss, and instead really coming into his own on a big carry champion.
Yeah, you saw the damage there. Absolutely ridiculous. Picking up, of course, the double kill, and I believe the top of our damage chart with 22,000 damage. It's about, what, 800, 900 damage a minute?
That is 100 more damage than the carries of J-Team added together. 22.3 for Syndra plus S combined to the 22.4 of the Corki.
And I have to give some criticism over to ST. He himself has said, you know what, the analysts as well as some of the fans have kind of questioned whether or not he can play some of these carries. Well, against the top teams, we have not been able to see that performance. Unfortunately, the Syndra was feeling lackluster. Some of the target selection was a little bit off, and he got completely outclassed by this man right here. Tank going to be your MVP on the Corki, 8-0-5 with the KDA.
Yeah, PSG were insane, but then, as you said, J-Team, a little bit shaky there, because we attributed their mid-jungle dominance primarily to Hana, and this time they drafted a supportive champ for Hana, kind of useless champ for Hana, and instead put all the eggs in Nesty's big carry shoes. Basket. I don't know, mixed metaphor, you know? But end of the day, it doesn't work out, and that's largely, you know, really gonna put a damper on some of these new dynamics that we're hoping for J-Team to kind of experiment with.
Well, we're gonna go ahead and take a quick interview with Hanabi from PSG Talon alongside
大
Patty.
家好，我是 PSG 上的韩大比。
好，那哈拉比你好，先是恭喜你们在对上台北这战队的时候再次取得他的胜利哦。我们这边有几个问题想要访问你，你们对上台北这战队已经是取得一个2-0的优势哦，在季后赛的话已经可以取得到一个非常好的名次。那看起来你们最近的状态也非常不错，但是在之前你们似乎是历经了一个比较长的连败，你们最近有做什么调整吗？
So congratulations for winning over Taipei J Team today. You guys have 2 games over Taipei J Team at the moment, and so if you guys have the same score in the playoffs, you're gonna have a better standing. And so after you guys lost to the Yacht last week, you guys seem to be doing pretty well this week. So did you guys make any changes or condition wise?
就季后赛名次，我觉得我们两队第4名，所以应该没什么差。然后上礼拜的连败，我觉得就只是 BP 做的不好，然后我们状态也不太好，所以才连败了。
So in their off season, I think I'm not going to care that much about the rankings. I'm just going to do what we always do. And last week is probably because we didn't do well with our BP, and also our team members' conditions aren't very well. So that was the reason.
那第二题想问就是你在龙区有单杀 race 的时候有个非常帅的这个预判的 Q 闪，那当时是你已经确定他会闪身去躲掉你的技能了吗？
So in the Drake pit, you had a single kill over Rest, and it was really cool because you did a really cool Q flash combo. And did you already knew that Rest is gonna try to flash away from it, but you still kill him, or what happened over there?
因为那时候他如果不交闪，就算我不交 Q， 他也会有 AS， 所以我已经知道他会交闪现，所以我就交闪现尝试一下而已。
So I already knew actually that he's gonna use flash, so that's why I used my Q flash combo and predicted his movement and killed him.
好，那也是感谢Hanabi接受我们的访问哦，再次恭喜你们赢下这场比赛。那也是可以看得出来，他们是觉得说之前的连败。
And you saw there, Hanabi being pretty helpful, and I arguably saying, helping carry the team alongside Tank when he said, the rest of the team, especially River, he had himself those health issues earlier on during the week, wasn't feeling well himself, and a great job by him.
Yeah, and just gave a big smile because, Hanabi got shut out entirely in the first 5 minutes, it felt like. The entire, the recipient of the entirety of that early game volatility we said J-Team would have. And yet, he turned it around, survived that level 6 delayed roam, and just did a lot for the rest of the team.
Well, we are going to go ahead and take a short break. When we come back, though, it is going to be our final matchup. Berjaya Dragons taking on Machi, and we'll close out day 2 of Week 6.
CTBC Bank is Taiwan's top financial institution, but we're not stopping there. We're crafting an international brand and already have over 260 outlets in 14 countries. We are by your side, ready to embrace the future.